Hello everyone, let's continue with the short circuit power. So the short circuit power name itself suggests that this is a kind of power dissipation that happens whenever there is a short circuit. So we have to try to identify what are the scenarios whenever we see a short circuit in your design. So this is let's look into them one by one. So for example, this was your system, this was your CMOS inverter with PMOS and NMOS over here. So let us try to look into the scenarios that can happen before even this particular transistors are trying to switch. So in this case, whenever your input is at logic 0, when we say this is at logic 0 and logic 1, these are nothing but your potential levels. So whenever we say logic 0, it's at 0 volts. Whenever we say at logic 1, it could be either at 1.8 volts or 1.01 volts, depending upon the technology or the technology node. This particular logic 1 voltage will be based on the technology node. It could be, for let's say, for an example of 180 nanometer technology node, a logic 1 can represent the 1.8 volts. So for now, if we say if this is at logic 0, it basically tells to us that this node is at logic 0, this node it has VDD, so your VGS is negative, and as a result of the VGS being negative, your PMOS turns on, and the reason for that is basically the VGS voltage crosses the threshold voltage of your PMOS transistor. That's what turns on the PMOS transistor. Similarly, whenever your input is at logic 1, it says that your gate is at logic 1. This particular input is at logic 1, which is at 1.8 volts. This is at 1.8 volts. So your VGS is less than 0, or basically it's exactly equal to 0, and hence it doesn't crosses the threshold voltage level of the PMOS transistor. That's why the PMOS turns off. On the contrary, when this is at VDD, or this is at logic 1, or let's say at 1.8 volts, and this is at logic 0, or this is at ground, so this particular VGS, the gate to source voltage, crosses the threshold. It's 1.8 volts, and that crosses the threshold voltage of your NMOS transistor. That makes the NMOS transistor to turn on, and that's why it conducts. Okay, so that's the physics behind what happens, what goes beyond the logic 0 and the logic 1 of your input. So you might want to look into my circuit design and SPICE simulation course, where you have talked a lot about this kind of voltage levels. So if we start from the beginning, at this point, whenever your input is at logic 0, this node is at logic 0, this is at 1.8 volts, your VDD, your VGS is negative, somewhere negative 1.8 volts, and your PMOS transistor is conducting, because the threshold voltage of the PMOS might be somewhere about negative 200 millivolts or negative 250 millivolts, and your VDD, which is at negative 1. Or your VGS, which is at negative 1.8 volts, is far beyond negative 200 millivolts, and that's why it causes the PMOS transistor to conduct. So in order for this particular transistor to not conduct, your VGS, the gate to source voltage, has to go below negative 200 millivolts. It should be somewhere about negative 200 millivolts to 0 volts. So that should be the range of your PMO, that should be the range of your gate to source voltage for this particular transistor to completely turn off. So whenever this input signal is trying to switch from logic 0 to logic 1, before it even reaches logic 1, it has to go through this particular path, and while it is going through this particular path, it doesn't completely turns off your PMOS transistor, because your VGS is still greater than your threshold voltage of your PMOS transistor. So somewhere around this region, your PMOS is still on. Okay, and while your input signal is somewhere around this region, it already crosses the VT, or the threshold voltage of your NMOS transistor. So the NMOS transistor conducts at a very slight rate, so the NMOS transistor also starts conducting. Now there is a scenario in between, somewhere during the transition of the input signal, that your PMOS is also on, because your gate to source voltage is greater than the threshold voltage of the PMOS. Your NMOS transistor also turns on, because your gate to source voltage of your NMOS is also greater than your threshold voltage of the NMOS, and as a result of that, both the transistor conducts for a short period of time, or for the period of time whenever there's a transition. Okay, so at that point of time, your PMOS and NMOS both are turning on, and the C load capacitor, which might already be charged. So we talked about a current that flows whenever your load capacitor is getting charged, and now since your NMOS is being turned on, there's a discharging current that flows through the C load. Along with the discharging current, since this particular thing is a short circuit, this is at a higher potential, this is at a lower potential, there is a short circuit current that flows from VDD to the ground, and that current is basically called as a short circuit current, and the power which is getting dissipated due to short circuit current, it's basically called as the short circuit power. So that's the concept of the short circuit power. But in order to model the short circuit current or the short circuit power, there are certain things that we need to look into, that the dependencies on the short circuit current on various parameters. So let's try to look into that first. So for example, if you will take two cases. So let's call this particular current, the discharging current, as the ISW. Let us call it as a switching current, and let us call it as ISA, which is a short circuit current. So whenever there's a switching current and short circuit current, it should follow the Kirchhoff's law. I'll get back to the law in a moment from now. So for example, in this case, we'll take two examples or two cases of the output load capacitor. And at this particular node, there will be two things that might happen whenever your C load is large and C load is small. So we'll take a C load as a very huge number. Let's say some very huge value of capacitor. Let's say more than 150 femtofarads, and that will result into a very huge C load. It will take an amount of charge it will take a significant amount of time to charge the complete or to discharge the complete load capacitor. So for example, let's take one case whenever your C load is large and this is the kind of your output waveform. So whenever your C load is large, it's basically kind of a bucket which is completely filled with water, and this bucket is a very huge bucket. In order to discharge the complete bucket, or in order to empty the complete bucket, it will take some significant amount of time. That's basically called as whenever your C load is very high. So whenever your C load is very high, it will take a significant amount of time for this particular bucket or for this particular capacitor to discharge completely from logic 0 to from logic 1 to logic 0. Okay, in this kind of scenario. Now in this scenario, your input is switching faster than your output. Your input is fast, your output is slow. So by the time input switches from logic 0 to logic 1, this particular node has been just started to switch from logic 1 to logic 0. So there is a very high chance that whenever this particular node which is at VDD, and by the time your input switches from logic 0 to logic 1, this node is still at VDD. Okay, if this node is still at VDD or around VDD, there is no potential difference from this point to this point, and as a result of that, you will see a zero short circuit current or close to zero short circuit current. Okay, that was about what happens whenever our C load is too large. And now what happens whenever our C load is too small? So whenever your output load capacitor is too small, this is the kind of the waveform. So by the time your input is switching from logic 0 to logic 1, even if a small trigger at this particular NMOS transistor which makes this particular transistor to turn on, your output load capacitor might get immediately discharged, and as a result of that, you will see the output capacitance or the output waveform trying to switch very fast because of your low value. Or let's say when we talk about a low value of load capacitor, it could be somewhere in the range of, let's say, 2 femtofarads or 3 femtofarads. It is that low, and as a result of that, there is very few amount of water in the bucket that needs to be emptied, and as a result of that, it is very fast. So in this case, your input is slow compared to the output, and as a result of that, you see a voltage. There is the potential over here is VDD. Okay, but the potential over here, since because of the fast changing output or because of the output load being too small, the potential over here is 0 or close to 0. At this moment of time or at this scenario, you will see the short circuit current to be the maximum value. Now this makes things very clear over here. It basically tells to us that even your short circuit current is a function of your output load capacitance and the input slew, and that's a very important conclusion that we need to make over here. So while modeling the short circuit power, we need to take care of the input slew, and basically we have to model the short circuit power in such a fashion that it's a function of your input slew and the output load capacitor. Okay, so what we'll do is, since we now know the definitions of the switching power and the short circuit power, let us try to model both of them. Let us try to begin with the modeling part, or how do we look into the libraries. Whenever we open up the libraries, how are the switching power and the short circuit power are getting modeled. So let's try to look into the modeling of the switching power and the short circuit power from the next video. Thank you.